Hi, thank you for choosing this video to watch. This, I found just recently, is a speaker, obviously, and it looks like a normal old speaker, but when I turned it around, somebody's been messing around with it. Here, I'll show you. It looks like somebody's wired a switch to either channel of the speaker, and then decided that they would do something with it. I don't know what this is supposed to do, but I'm going to try it. I took off the duct tape and I cleaned it up, and it looks like somebody did. Well, here's something interesting. I don't know why they did this. It's an interesting approach. It's just, you never know. I feel like kind of like an investigative reporter uncovering the truth of some sordid cover-up. And you know, when I do these things, I mean, obviously whoever did this decided what they needed was to attach a smaller wire to a bigger wire, and they decided to use duct tape for that, which I understand. As a DIYer, I just use whatever I have at hand to fix the things I want to fix. So that's not odd. It's just the whole thing is kind of odd. Like, they obviously wanted to have this forever connected, and so they were doing some tests about, they were turning off the positive lead and sounding what it sounded like, and then they were turning off the negative lead and turning off both, and where they weren't testing this, so they must have been testing the signals that were coming out of some amplifier or something. So I don't know what that sounds like. I mean, I think I probably have heard what it sounded like when I got, you know, like a wire not connected very well and the speaker sounded weird or something. But I didn't know what it was, so I don't know. I'm just going to plug this in and find out.
Now, before I go any further, I realized that my amplifier wasn't quite working well, so I decided to take it apart and clean it up. And that's when I discovered that it looks really cool inside. I thought I'd share it with you. See this thing here? This is what tunes the radio. So you turn the knob, and it's connected to this pulley system, which draws the needle across the tuner so that we can see which frequency we're tuning to. And that's connected to this little drum of interlocking plates. And there's a stable set and a rotating set. And when I rotate the drum, these plates slot in closer to each other, and that increases the electrical capacitance. And that provides a filter for all but one of the frequencies. And that is the signal we hear coming through our speakers. Speaking of the speakers, this is a complete diversion from my true purpose, which was to investigate this speaker I found. So, back to that.
Right, here's the setup. Here's the front of the speaker. I don't know if I showed you that after I cleaned it up. But before we go around the side, look at this stuff. Whoever modified this, it feels like JB Weld. I don't know, it's really odd. Instead of using screws, I don't know. Very interesting modifications. So, here's the switches connected to the left channel of the speakers B, and I have taken my O-coast and connected it up through the auxiliary port. And as you hear, the music is coming out. Beautiful music. Kind of like that better. Anyhows, so what we do is there. now that's off. It just turns it right off. It's hard to do this with one hand. Tell you what. Setup. I'm going to switch them around just to see what happens. So it appears that really all this does is has the same effect as taking one of these off. Really, that's all it does. And when you do that, you break the circuit, so there can be no sound coming through. So for some reason, somebody took this apart and wanted to see whether the positive or the negative signal was coming from the amplifier to the speaker. Maybe somebody who works in the recording business, doing their own recording, right? Like someone who just kind of jimmy together a speaker like this wouldn't work in a professional studio, but if they work at home and they wanted to make sure that all the positive signals were positive and all the negative signals were negative, they might rig something up like this. So why would you worry about that? Well, when we talk about speakers, all we're really talking about is a coil of wire that's attached to a cone. Here is a little speaker I removed from an old piece of electronics. But you can clearly see here's a little stub that's sort of attached to the frame of the back of the speaker, and the stub holds on to two posts. The back side of the posts are attached to wires, and the front side of these posts go out the back of a speaker, right? So these two wires, you can actually see the light coming through. The two wires go through the paper cone
And attach through the cone to a coil which surrounds a magnet.
So when a signal from the amplifier is sent through one side, I don't know which is positive and which is negative, it's sent through a coil which is in here, right? And here's a nice magnet that's sticking out. You can see pretty clearly. I don't know why they did this, except maybe just for support, because other magnets don't have this herky big old steel thing on the back. But the coil is magnetized, and it's when it's magnetized for just a fraction of a microsecond, it pulls that magnet back a little bit, and it vibrates this paper cone. Paper cone vibrates the air, and it goes into your ears, and then it activates nerves in your brain that tells you you're hearing sound, right? That's how it all works. So we want to make sure that the positive and the negative are attached to the correct poles, because if they aren't, you will, well, if there's two speakers, you'll have one speaker canceling out the other, because the coil in here there'll be a movement of energy around the coil in one direction in this speaker, and if the other one's wired wrong, it'll be moving that way, and it'll be pushing the cone when this one will be pulling the cone, and that'll distort the sound. I mean, it won't break anything, but that's why you want to make sure your signals are not crossed. Makes sense.